there. All right, now I think we're going to go. So, Joe, you were telling me that at the end, after you'd observed the surrender and all, that you all hauled some Chinese nationalist troops up into the edge of China where the Japanese had been occupying China, and the Japanese pulled out as part of the surrender thing, and you took nationalist troops in there, but you felt like we didn't help them enough, and the nationalists were kicked out then by the communists. Is that
right? Yeah.
And why do you think that happened?
Well, the first trip we went up, we unloaded them right at where the Great China Wall starts. We can see that through our binoculars, and it was interesting. But we unloaded these troops. Of course, there were some communist soldiers there, and they was taking pot shots at us with these old rifles, and we didn't much like that. But we weren't allowed to fire a shot, and the Chinese troops weren't allowed to fire a shot until they disembarked from our ship. So anyway, we went back to Hong Kong, and a convoy of us did, and bought another load, but we unloaded them farther south down at Sing Tao, and then we got word from Washington to hold up on everything.
And why do you think Washington said that?
Well, politics. It wasn't. They wanted the people wanted the boys to come home, you know, and I can understand that. But some of us felt like that we ought to stay there and help old Chiang Kai-shek out since he was our ally, and but it didn't happen that way, and we thought that. Seemed to me like that we pulled out too soon. We could have given a little more help, and maybe China never would have gone communist. But then,
well, I can't help but think you might be right.
It's hard to blame the people because, man, their money wasn't worth anything, and it's starved, and the Japanese had mistreated them, and you know, they were just kind of having to live underground to survive.
So it's not surprising that when Chiang Kai-shek came in with talk of a better time, that they'd line up.
Well, when the communists came in, they went for their talk, you know. But anyway, after the second trip up there from Hong Kong, we headed back to the Philippines and loaded up troops and took them back to the States. And
see, I find this all very interesting because I know that you probably support Mr. McCain's idea of stay the course in Iraq. I don't, but I have to think that maybe what you saw there at the end of World War II with the Chinese situation, I don't have any doubt but what you're right, that had we given some more help there, we might have changed the whole history of that communist takeover in China. At least stalled it a little. Something good would have happened.
Yeah, I like to think it would have been better.
And now here we are, you know. I don't see how we're ever going to do anything good in Iraq, but maybe you and Mr. McCain and the others that think that way are right. The truth of the matter is probably only God knows, and I don't think he's going to tell us for sure.
No. Well, future generations might know when the history comes out.
Yeah, when they look back, it's a lot easier.
Yeah. My hindsight's a lot better than foresight.
And you know, Joe, I'd never heard this until just the last few years. But guess who writes history? The winners.
Well,
if you went over to Russia and read the history of World War II, I'll guarantee you it would read different than it will in an American textbook or a British textbook. Same way with the War of Independence. You know, we were nothing but terrorists, rebellious, ungrateful citizens of the realm.
Yeah, I imagine if he was under the influence of the king, you sure thought that.
Well, man, when we had our Army reunion back there, and the tour guides were taking us around, and they were pointing out certain houses that the way the chimneys were built told you whether they were Tory houses or not. And he said the Tories, you know, hell, they weren't going to stay around because they were now the bad guys because they'd been supporting the king all the time. And right after the surrender, and the pullout by the British that the Tories left as fast as they could get on boats and took their money and went back to England. They were the rich. They were the rich party at that time.
Yeah.
But we got along without them.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts you want to give about that service time? We got about 30 seconds left.
Well, you know, it's been so many years ago, it almost seemed like a dream, but I know it was real.
Oh, I guess you do know it was real.
I know the feeling I got in my stomach when I torpedoed that first ship. Dark at night, you couldn't see a hand in front of you. That's a pretty scary thing for a kid. But, you know.
It might have been scary for a kid, but it was scary, I'm sure, for the oldest guy on board, too. So, Joe, thank you for being there and for doing the job, and I know you had a sweetheart and Mary Lee waiting for you to come home, and
yeah,
you did.
That kind of kept you cheered up.
Yes, sir.